again, YouTuber. This is Dylan with the Gaming Elevator. Today is February 4th, 2014, and that also means it is episode 2 of All Things Leap. Graphic. So, before I forget, happy birthday. But otherwise, today on the plate, I have for you a few apps that will actually show you kind of graphically how Leap Motion works. The first of which is, well, all of them are available on the Airspace store, but the first of which is called Orientation, and it's free, of course, but basically what this app allows you to do is kind of see, exactly what Leap Motion sees, whether it be on a 2D plane or three-dimensionally. And it also has a cool little drawing feature as well that kind of shows you just how sensitive Leap Motion is to gestures. The other one I'm going to use is called Flocking, and basically what this does is kind of shows you, again, more of how Leap Motion uses your finger gestures and uses that to control different things, and basically does it by means of kind of little minnow fish that follow you around, whether it be left and right or back and forth, again on a three-dimensional plane. Also, I'm going to demonstrate Touchless for Windows, and as the name kind of states, it gives you touchless control of your Windows operating system. Now, there is a Touchless app also available for Mac, and I was thinking about going over that next week. However, I'm probably going to go ahead and use the Better for Touch, because that's actually exclusively for Mac, and what it does is actually gives you even more control over what gestures do. You can actually program in what different finger gestures, what hand gestures do, for example, and I'll get into more later, but in my case, on my Mac Mini, I actually set it up so when I do two-hand clap, basically puts the Mac to sleep. And so, but there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. It's really neat. I barely scratched the surface of what's possible. So we'll get into a little bit of that more next week, just because it's a lot to do in one episode. So, without further ado, I'm going to start off with Orientation. Alright, so this is Orientation. What Orientation does is basically gives you a graphical representation of what Leap Motion sees, to kind of get a better understanding of exactly how it does what it does. So this first demo here kind of demonstrates the two-dimensional left, right, up, down, your kind of like your X and Y axes controls. So you'll notice here, it's pretty sensitive as far as the pickup. Basically just kind of demonstrates it by the different flares here. But you got your left, your right, your up, and your down. So that's pretty basic here, but we can move on to more of the three-dimensional. So Explore the Space basically kind of gives you more of the feel of the three-dimensional. Now you may or may not be able to see it real well here, just kind of depending on how you interpret it, but when I show you Flocking, that one will definitely be a better representation of the three dimensions. So here we've got not only your left and your right, but you've also got your in and your out. So you can kind of tell there's a little bit closer to you when you're on the outside, but then if you push inwards, it kind of gets a little bit more small, and you can kind of see the difference there. So this is basically what it sees. So with one hand, you can see how it kind of separates out your different fingers and kind of the different joints too. So if you bend a finger, you can kind of see exactly how it sees it. And it really is kind of pointer or fingertip driven with a lot of this stuff. But otherwise, fairly accurate as far as that goes. But Leap Motion isn't just limited to one hand. You can use two, and that's very nice because there are a lot of apps that utilize that. Now, like I said, in reference to the kind of like the 2x2x2 cube, you do end up using more of your space, so you're a little bit more limited as far as movement goes to make sure everything gets tracked. But you can see that it can pretty accurately follow and track two hands at once. Now the drawing portion is pretty basic, but it kind of gives you a sense of just exactly how sensitive the Leap Motion is. So right now what you can see, it's basically a the leap motion kind of uses what's called a hover and a touch zone. So right now we're in the hover zone, so you can kind of see where you're on the screen without actually interacting with it. And then when you push forward is when you actually get an interaction, whether it be a gesture or a motion or anything. But you can kind of see here a lot of this is just small finger movement, but you can move it very slightly, very large, and kind of get whatever effect you're going for. And then this, again, it's capable of understanding and following all of your fingers too. So, we can throw the second hand. I guess this one just falls on the first, but you can kind of see, just exactly how sensitive it is there. So that's orientation, and we'll move on to flocking next. Alright, so this is flocking. Right now, probably a little confusing. You've got your little kind of three-dimensional fish here swimming around. Doesn't make much sense out of context, but basically their purpose is to follow you around. So this is a really good demonstration of the three-dimensional abilities of the leap motion. So here you'll see, kind of introduce my finger here, point of interest for the fish. As we follow it on the screen, they follow my finger. And, we can bring it closer to us. You can see there how nicely it tracks the three-dimensional space. And then also pushing in causes them to go in too. And again, you can introduce multiple fingers or points of reference here. But yeah, flocking otherwise isn't much more of an app, or there's really not much you can really do with it. But you just kind of show off the different abilities of what it's capable of. But I figured this would be a good one to kind of show you guys exactly, how the sensing of the leap motion basically handles your movements. Okay, so Touchless for Windows is basically a substitute for your traditional input on your computer. Touchless is also available on Mac as well, but as mentioned, next week we're going to look more at the Better for Touch, which gives you a lot more capabilities with the Mac operating system. You can actually program in what different gestures you want. So here what we're seeing is your basic internet browser, and this does work in other browsers as well. Just using Internet Explorer in this particular case. Usually I'm a Chrome person, but for this case we'll just use IE. So basically the way to think about the touch is going to be anything you can really do with a mouse, you can use touch. And if you already have a tablet or a phone or anything with a touch screen, you kind of already get a feeling of how it works. So basically we're looking at the same thing minus the actual touch screen itself. So here again you kind of have that hover zone, so you can kind of see where you're going without actually interacting on the page. So just the basic kind of gestures here is you've got your scrolling. Very, very similar to what it would be if you're on a device. So it's a little bit easy to kind of get used to if you're already used to using touch devices. Besides that, Touchless does have different operating modes, which it kind of introduces when you first set it up. The mode I'm using is called Advanced, but there's also a basic mode that I did use when I first started using it to kind of get a little bit more familiar with the way it works. Basic mode is usually treated as just a one touch. You can do two fingers plus, but you end up just getting the same effect as whether you would just do two fingers even if you were using 3 or 4. And that typically gives you options like scroll. Now with the advanced mode like I'm using, you can do the one touch scroll like I'm doing. If you introduce 2 fingers, you can actually do like a pinch zoom. So this would be very, very similar to your phone or your tablet. So if you notice here, both register, and you kind of do like an in-out pinch, And now the way Leap Motion recognizes it, you usually want to go at a horizontal because although Leap Motion is pretty fantastic, it doesn't have the advanced capabilities of understanding, the placement of one finger above the other, at least at this point. So anything multi-finger is usually done on a horizontal plane. Something that utilizes that pretty well, and I usually like to show to people, is the built-in Maps application in Windows 8. And basically, you can browse around the world in case you're looking at going on vacation somewhere. Take a look here at Nashville in this case, but you can zoom in, zoom out, kind of browse around. It's pretty cool. There's obviously other bigger uses for Leap than just browsing around your map. Anything you could do on Google Maps, I'm sure, but you can kind of get a feel for the different things. Advanced mode does also pick up different fingers. So compared to the basic one being just kind of 1, 2, you got your 2, you got your 3, 4, and of course all 5. Now when you start using 5 with certain applications, they'll have different purposes, but in a lot of these it ends up doing the same type of thing. So but the advanced mode, it takes a little bit more getting used to, but I think it's nice because you really do get more kind of control on the system. Now of course with Windows 8, touchless and any sort of non-direct touch interaction is a lot more intuitive with Windows 8. Leap Motion is compatible with Windows 7, but as far as the different touch capabilities, you'll notice that obviously Windows 8 is designed and optimized for touch. Therefore, it's going to be easier to use. It's going to be more fun to use. But of course, you can use it. The different games and everything, of course, you can still do on Windows 7. But again, you have your different Windows 8 controls. So you can pop to your charms, go to your start menu. Of course, the feature of 8.1, you can kind of see all your applications when you click and swipe from the middle of the screen. So, you can browse around. You can select things. Now, with a lot of people, they say that, one of the first things I guess they would find as a fault with Leap Motion is they accidentally open an application they don't want. Now, I'm going to be honest, that is something I did too when I first started it, but the more you get used to using it, the more you kind of get the feel for it. And so if you kind of learn, thing to remember when you're selecting things, and when you're first using touchless for Windows, it kind of goes over this too, but to do like an accurate selection, you kind of want to do a slow poke. You'll notice that it's got the built-in kind of sensor to kind of show you it's getting smaller and smaller, and then green for the selection. If you do it too quick, you might not actually create like a selection. Otherwise, you might, if you're going too quick and you don't do it slow and accurate, you might end up opening something you don't want to open, and that can be annoying. Anything that causes you to take your hand away from Leap and switch over to the mouse, is going to be a little bit aggravating. But like I said, it really does take some getting used to, but once you start getting used to it, kind of the ins and outs, you get a lot better feel for it. So don't, if you do decide to get one, don't get discouraged if, you're just not quite getting it right away. It took me a while to. But other than that, there's not too much to touchless. Like I said, really anything you can do with a mouse, you can do with your finger or fingers. But it's kind of a cool way to interact with the system, just like getting away from just your traditional mouse interaction. Other than that, though, that's touchless for Windows. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and of course, like and subscribe on this video. And like I said earlier on, if there shows to be a lot of interest in Leap Motion, I'm definitely willing to take suggestions if there's anything you guys are particularly looking at, or otherwise, that's it for episode 2 of Leap Motion, and I look forward to hearing back from you guys. Thank you.